So good morning, everybody. I seem to be live, and there's some people here with us in the chat saying good morning, afternoon, evening. So I hope you're all well out there, wherever you may be. Here we are still down on the far south coast of New South Wales, having some chilly nights and mornings as we're slowly lurching towards spring. So last week it went full into spring, and then it's gone back to winter as it does. So perhaps in the Northern Hemisphere, you're getting the same bits of cool and last gasps of summer. Interesting, this shoulder season. Not quite sure what to wear. How many layers to have at night. And then suddenly it goes into summer or warm spring, and we stay there. So we have 4 very distinct seasons in this part of Australia, and and it keeps it interesting, I suppose. And you see the beauty of all the different seasons. In many parts of the world, there's just pretty much one season, hot, like Singapore, or cold, like parts of Scandinavia, although I'm sure they get some hot summers, 1 or 2. When I lived in Ireland, I think that I could count on one hand. I think I wore T-shirts maybe 3 times for a whole year. And it got to 26, and the Irish were going, oh my God, I'm melting. So what we're used to, huh? And it's all about our conditioning, whether it's our physical conditioning or our mental conditioning, and just the need to be aware of that. So I've been speaking, and I'm just hoping that you can actually, the microphone's behaving, but I'm sure you would have let me know if you couldn't. And okay, and people are in the midst of hurricane season. That would be an interesting thing to experience. And sorry, I haven't got my glasses on yet. I'll put them on for the Q&A. Okay, so those who haven't been before to these sessions, and I think sometimes that happens quite a bit. We get people popping in for the first time and maybe popping out again. But it's just a simple gathering of earnest practitioners who want to come together and feel the support and the energy of the group. So this is what we call a sangha, a community. And for the first 20 minutes or so, just offering some simple guided meditation, and then an opportunity to clarify some points around meditation or Dharma. So I think I've given enough time for people to tune in, get the notification. So as we always do, please come into a comfortable seated position if you can. And if you're able to shut the door, tell your family that you're having a meditation session, and turn off any distractions, devices. Leave the chat alone. Some people come late and say hello. That's okay. We can just ignore the chat. I won't bother turning it on and off. It's too much of a risk to touch anything sometimes on YouTube. So just leave it as it is. And in that spirit, leaving it as it is, we'll bring that attitude into the meditation. So just going to stop this scan. I won't let that go because that will really disrupt. I've got to skip the scan with Trend Micro. Okay, skip the scan. Apart from that, we'll leave everything as it is. So apart from just checking in with your body and making sure that it's supportive and in a healthy seated position so that your spine is upright, your neck is not twisted or bent, your hands are resting in your lap, on your knees. Your eyes are either gently closed or, if you prefer, gazing at a point in front of you. Whatever supports your practice. And even though we use this term practice, try not to differentiate too much between just being awake and alive and natural and moving in to meditation. The only real difference is that we're going to try and cultivate, encourage a certain degree of wakefulness and mindfulness, which ultimately is the natural state. And all the other distractions and worries and preoccupations, they're not actually natural. They're all conditioned. So it's starting to recognize this, and when we turn our attention away from all the different distractions, external, internal, and just allow the mind to settle in the present moment, you start to get a sense of just how natural that really is. And really how normal it is. When you just let things be, it's often helpful just to attune to your own physicality. So that you know, excuse me, you know the experience of just being in a body first. That awareness of embodiment helps to keep you grounded. Your feet are firmly planted in the present moment. Rather than drifting away in your fantasies, with your worries, your daydreams, your anxieties. Just let this simple body awareness, which includes the breath, be your anchor, just to help anchor you right now, in the here and now. So don't rush it and don't force it. It's just a gentle reminder, a gentle remembering, a gentle waking up to each moment. Feel your body, connect with your breath, and keep asking yourself, where am I now? Am I in yesterday? Am I already in tomorrow or next week, next month? There's only now. And a way to help you be now is to come into embodiment. Even if that feels uncomfortable, boring, painful, agitated. All this meditation is asking you to do is really to do nothing, but just be. Fully be. Not think, not imagine, not analyze, not pick up whatever you think it is that it means to do meditation. Simply be. And how difficult is something so simple? The body breathes itself. You don't even need to breathe. It's really a practice of giving up. Letting go. Giving up doing. Giving up becoming. Giving up clinging and grasping at ideas, feelings, emotions, thoughts. Just have a spring clean and let them all go. And particularly giving up this idea that I'm going to get something in the future. It simply just keeps you on the hamster wheel, running, chasing, imagining. So if you find that your mind is still very distracted, racing here and there, caught in daydreams or just dull and drifting, there's a couple of things you can do that are quite skillful. Because most of us are in our heads a lot of the time. Conditioned to be thinkers, warriors, analyzers, arguing with the world and with ourselves. So the first thing you can try and do is just to look very directly at the thoughts themselves. Move towards them with your attention. And have a good look at them. So you're not blocking them, but you're not completely identified with them. You want to be really looking clearly at them, at their nature. So do that for a little while. Just look very directly at each thought as it comes. And start to take note of what you're learning about the nature of these thoughts. And also what happens when you shine the light of awareness upon them. Are you still entangled by them? Are you still 100% identified with them? Driven by them? If so, you're not looking clearly enough. Start noticing the gaps, the spaces, the silent pauses between each thought. And start to familiarize yourself with that which is between the thoughts, beyond the thoughts. What is that which is not a thought? Not even an object. Not a something, and not a nothing. Is it something that you have to create when you let go of a thought? And is it something you can even hold on to when thoughts come to cessation? This is the territory that you have to become more familiar with in order to go deeper in meditation. So it's the territory beyond all conditions, all beliefs, opinions and views. Moving from the known to what we might call the unknown. But it's really knowing the unknowing in a completely different way from how we're used to knowing things, labeling things, conceptualizing things. So to try not to fall into the same trap of conceptualizing a no thing, and even calling it a no thing is a problem. But it's the best we can do when we use these words and play with language. It's better just to build your intuitive muscles and say nothing. So as you set aside a time each day, hopefully perhaps a few times each day, just to come into full presence and start to recognize and rest in your natural state. A lot of the great masters say it's best to just spend shorter periods of time. So like 15, 20 minutes. You can do it a few times a day. Because often we find if we're sitting in the beginning as beginners or even as intermediate practitioners for long periods, thinking that the longer the better, often the mind just gets lost in daydreaming or falls asleep, or it becomes a very conceptual meditation. So it's often very much more helpful to have shorter, more profound, more clear, non-conceptual periods. And only you can really make that call. And the more you practice, then the more you'll find that those periods of just resting the mind, insights developing of their own accord, will naturally become longer. So it really depends where you're at. So we'll bring this short meditation to a close at one level, and maintaining that same open spaciousness and awareness, albeit in a communicative way, in relationship with one another, as an opportunity to bring up any questions about the meditation, about your practice, and so on. I will endeavour to keep this thread under control. So Amory's asked me to speak a bit on Joshu's MU, or Mu. So the Mu is a Zen koan, and I'm not, no expert within the Zen tradition, so I'm certainly reluctant to say much other than Mu is pointing to from the Theravadan perspective, the not self nature of things, the emptiness, the no thing. So in Zen, they often pick up a koan, in this case Mu, or some more a koan that might be a bit more of a riddle, and just meditate on it. Really, really focus on it. So in Joshu's Mu, it would be this, contemplating what is this nature of nothingness, of emptiness. So a little bit like asking you to focus on a thought is to really pick up an object and look directly, so that you're undoing all these heavy-duty conditionings and beliefs that you are your thought, for example, or in Joshu's case, that there is a solid reality, and the word mu, the koan mu, is about looking into the empty nature of all things. That's the whole point of picking up any particular object in meditation, is to cut through, break through delusion, really. But if you want to know more about, or if you're a Zen practitioner, this is, well, you can ask your Zen teacher, but if you want to know more about Joshu's particular thing, I would say you could get more out of AI these days than me. Just Google it. You get these AI responses. They're not always correct, but you might be able to go onto a reputable Zen website if you want to find out more details, Anne-Marie. But that's pretty much all I can say. It's really the principle of picking up a koan, an object, a mantra. It's all really about breaking through the veils of conditioning. Now I have to find it again. Under here, yes. So you're asking me questions about areas that I'm not an expert in, whether it be Zen or Kundalini. So, I might read about Zen, but I'm not necessarily a seasoned expert in Zen. I'd share those things that really resonate for me, that also correlate to my own practice and my own Dharma tradition. But anyway, someone's asking, what is the difference with the energy point entering at, what is different between Kundalini starting at the feet compared to the base of the spine? I don't know. I do not know. And again, it's people who are into Kundalini practice. So I'm not even going to try and logically guess that. But I'm also wondering, why is it important? Is it something that you're experiencing, or it's just an idea that sounds interesting? A lot of questions we ask are just because they're entertaining. Is it really something that's going to help you uproot your own suffering and confusion? And if it's just a distraction, just because it sounds good, then you need to really recognize that. I always encourage people to ask questions that are really coming from where you're at, not just for spiritual entertainment. So Donnie has asked, for me, the longer I sit, the quieter my mind gets and the deeper my awareness gets, so that I feel that oneness. Short periods are grounding and calming, but not deep states. So that's fine, Donnie. As I said, that was also, those shorter periods were encouraging for people who are just beginning the practice, or who, just finding that they're sitting and they're just lost in thoughts. Then a lot of teachers will encourage people just to do shorter. So it's about quality, not quantity. But if you find that your awareness, you can sit, the longer you sit, the deeper it goes, that's fine. But also there might be some obstacles that you might encounter. When we go deep and we go very still, we get very attached to the calm, and the mind just wants to stay in that calm and not inquire. And then we can get very, very addicted to that, but it's not liberating. It's just what's often called deep states of samadhi. But if you're not using inquiry or investigation and those other awakening factors, then you can sit like that for years, they say, but you won't be liberated from ignorance, delusion. So that's something just to put out there to see how you're relating to the calmness, which is called the shamatha practice, or samatha. Samatha and vipassana always have to go hand in hand. Okay, so in contrast to that, Miriam has said, I'm very grateful For this, I usually meditate and appreciate this insight about the length, as I've observed the same. Yeah, and some days you might sit and you want to just sit for an hour or 2 hours, and you find that you're not just wasting your time thinking or falling asleep or fantasizing. It's actually, when it's like that and you're not even doing it, then you know that the meditation is happening very naturally. It's not like, I must keep sitting. I've got to reach the hour mark or the 2 hour mark. But if you're sitting and the mind's just solid, you don't even know. You don't have a concept of time. And it just, the meditation just happens by itself and ends by itself. That's real meditation, which is called non-meditation. It's all these different paradoxical terms, but they're really pointing to a deep truth. So Liberty Maid has asked, can you please explain Dharma? I don't have a clear understanding. So I'm assuming you're asking Dharma as a concept and you've used a small d. So Dharma, again, if you want more, we have availability to a whole world encyclopedia out there now. So I'll just say a little bit, and then I would just encourage you, if you want to fill in even more. But using the word, the small d for Dharma, is pointing to all phenomena, everything imaginable in the world, often referred to as the 10,000 things, right? Which is just a way of saying everything and anything is a Dharma. Your body, the trees, the sky, the universe, your feelings, your thoughts, all these sort of, whether they're material or non-material, everything is a Dharma with a small d. And that Dharma is of the nature of the conditioned world. Its nature is to arise and cease, so it's impermanent. Every Dharma, no Dharma contains what's called a solid entity or a fixed self. So even within this body mind, there's no fixed self that I could say is unchanging, that the essence, right, that's some solid thing that doesn't change as part of this conditioned world. And then the Buddha spoke of the Dharma as the truth as well, and it's often used when you see big D. Capital D is the Dharma, is the truth that points to the truth of the way things are. And the Dharma with the capital D is referring both to the condition, the law of the conditioned world, and the unconditioned, right? So the unconditioned Dharma is that which doesn't arise and cease, isn't impermanent, and equally doesn't have a permanent fixed self-entity. So in that meditation, there was an invitation to just look at your dharmas arising within your mind and body. These are physical dharmas, mental dharmas. And then to start to notice that which actually is very subtly different from that, which is not a that. This is what we'll call, the unconditioned reality. So, but, so much, I could speak for the whole session on Dharma, Dharmas, and the Dharma. I would just encourage you to keep understanding it conceptually is a good start, but you always have to take that conceptual understanding inwards to your meditation and to look, what are these conditioned dharmas? What is the unconditioned Dharma? If it doesn't become an experiential understanding, if it just remains on the level of me talking and you reading on Google, that's not going to help you. You have to move from that. We start with concepts and intellectual understanding and move towards turning that understanding towards your own reality, because you are the Dharma. Okay. Thank you, people who are expressing their appreciation. So Ka or Kari is asking, I often experience a hot flash or heat rising up when I meditate. It is uncomfortable and even makes me feel panicky. Do you have any suggestions for sitting with it and letting it pass? Yeah, well, I can speak directly to that because I have that most times too. So, and it's not just post-menopausal. I think that most of that's gone. It's simply just energy rising, I find, and a lot of people find this. You sit in the cross-legged position and straight away you're actually generating a lot of energy just by sitting still. When we're moving around doing stuff, of course, we're generating energy, but it's often dissipated and wasted, right? We're doing, we're thinking, we're rushing. But when you sit and make the commitment just to sit and to pull the energy into one place, what happens is this, for me, I'll speak for me, and you probably can relate by the sounds of it. This heat rises from deep in the abdomen and comes up, flushes all over my body. It doesn't last for long, and yeah, it's not. I wouldn't say it's pleasant, but it's gone beyond being unpleasant now because I just sit with it, and it's just the fire element. It's just heat. So if you can just notice, it's just heat, and it's part of just generating that energy. It's all it is energy. And then somehow the body has its own intelligence to work out how to balance that energy and spreads that heat throughout the body. And then within a few minutes, you have a more even energy flow. So, but it does seem to come from the lower, what in Chinese medicine is called the lower dantian, isn't it? So there's probably a whole scientific explanation for that, and in Chinese medicine they'd probably be able to explain that well. Even in Kundalini, I'm sure it's something about that as well, but I don't try and figure it out too much. I just experience it as heat rising, generating heat, and if you stay with it, you actually are cultivating that energy for your meditation, because you're not going, oh, I don't like this, I want to get rid of this, I'm going to get up until I'm cool and sit down again and get up and sit down. Just stay with it. It's not going to kill you. It may not feel comfortable, it might even feel unpleasant, but it's often the add-ons that make it worse. I don't like this is and you're feeling panicky, so there's obviously fear. What's going on? Maybe I'm having a heart attack, maybe there's something wrong with me, and you're adding on. It's just heat. I think it's quite natural, to be honest. A lot of people have it. And so make the commitment just to be with it. When I was having them much more intensely and regularly post-menopausal, I would just, and they would last a lot longer and go throughout the whole body, and I'd say they were really quite unpleasant. So I just imagined I was getting into a warm bath, because my whole body was like it was immersed in a hot bath, and changing the perception from this is really awful to I'm having a hot bath. Okay, and again, it might last 1, 2, 3 minutes, but I don't think much more than that. And then the not adding on, the not resisting, the not reacting, the not making it more than it is, means it just passes. And our bodies are amazing. They have their own way of balancing hormones and elements and atoms. Let the body do its thing and keep the commentary in the background. It's the commentary that to all these things that make it bigger and make a problem out of something that's quite natural. So Upasika has asked, is it more conducive to Dharma practice to have an occupation as a psychotherapist than a programmer or something similar that forces you to constantly solve problems? That is a lot of conceptual thinking. No, I think if you're a psychotherapist, you're equally involved in all sorts of people's dramas and traumas, and I wouldn't think that that's better. I mean, I guess it's a helping healing profession, but so many psychotherapists get burnt out by just being in the field of everybody's problems and traumas and having to sit with that. So if you're a computer programmer, it has its own problems, of course. But whatever we do, you know, whilst you're programming or whilst you're being a psychotherapist, if we can just make it that time is when I'm going to be, I need to conceptually think if I'm a programmer, but I don't need to keep taking it with me, you know, so learning how to just drop things. So we're not always thinking about programming or whatever work we're doing. If we are, that's when people get burnt out. We take our work with us. We dream about it. We tell our family about it, our friends about it. We go to the pub and talk about it or whatever people do. It's about just when you're doing programming, When you come home and go for a walk. Do things that help you drop all the thinking and conceptualizing. But I would say that you know we do what gifts we have, what we're drawn to, and if we're not drawn to it, if it's not really where we're meant to be, we'll get those nods and prompts to move on. But don't idealize psychotherapy as an occupation. In fact, don't idealize anything, even this Buddhist nun so-called occupation or vocation. Don't idealize that. It's not for everyone. And, you know, you've got to really just be authentic where you're at. Okay, just scrolling down. Hello from Eugene, Oregon. My question is, how would you characterize the visual experience in that liminal space in embodied presence? It's like purplish breathing visualization. That's nice. Yeah, I get what you mean by that. Can sometimes feel like that. But I would ask you not to characterize it. This is the problem. What we start to do is to make something that's objectless or attribute-less, and because of our conditioning and our addiction to wanting to get something, know something, figure it out and put a label on it, we start trying to grasp things and give it names. So what the encouragement is to do, if it appears as a purplish breathing visualization, that's fine, but it doesn't always. It'll change, right? And that's just, I think it's just the mind trying to make sense of things, and sometimes just strange perceptions can arise. Perceptions spontaneously arise in the mind. But that's not it. Whatever arises as a perception or as a vision, as some sort of visual object or a vision, that's also impermanent. It's also a Dharma that arises and ceases. But the Dharma that doesn't arise and cease isn't related to any particular manifestation, right? It's the brain and the mind trying to figure things out and label things. So don't characterize it. It's not a visual experience anyway. Whatever visual experience you have is a visual experience. It's not, and that will come and go. But this is our addiction, isn't it? I've got to figure this out. What is it? Is it purple? Is it blue? It's nothing. It's none of that, right? And it's not a blue light. It's not a nimitta. These things appear and disappear. So can you just be with the not knowing? That's the biggest challenge for us, is we always want to know, figure it out, or have a label for something and then say, we got it. You'll never get it. Can't get what you already are. Okay. All right. EV. It is said that suffering is born out of desire. tell me, how do I deal with my desire to not see the suffering that is going on so strongly in this world? My suffering is caused by others' suffering. Is it? That's what you think. So your desire, whether it's the desire to not suffer, is still desire. So there's in the Buddha's teachings, he talks about the desire to get rid of things, to not be. That's a desire in itself. So whether it's desire to want things and have things, or keep being, keep becoming, or the desire not to be, to just blank out and go away from everything and go into extinction, is also a desire born from aversion or hatred, right? So you're saying that your suffering is caused by others' suffering, but really your suffering is caused by your own conceptual reactions and concepts about what's going on in the world. You know, we see the world, and then we say this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. Right? And it's not to say there isn't right and wrong actions. It's not saying everybody's. It's not about amorality, but it's about our own reactions to what's going on that causes ourselves suffering. They shouldn't be killing one another. They shouldn't be bombing. Of course they shouldn't, but who's suffering? Who's suffering because of that? It's us. We have this visual image, or we read a story, and that comes in through the senses, and we don't like it. We want to get rid of it. And then we create all these ideas about what's happening in the world through what we've read or seen. But where is your world? Your world is right here and now, with your mind and body, creating an image of the world, which will be very different from another person's, or might have some similarities. But why do you suffer and the other person doesn't suffer? Maybe they blank out, or maybe they have wisdom and they understand that this is the nature of karma, this is the nature of beings caught up in ignorance. So everyone's got a different reaction to these visual images about the world and stories. But nobody is causing your suffering. Okay, someone's just writing some nice notes about AI. I'm better than AI. Only just. I've been through a lot and can see the conditioning and learn to let go, but a mother's heartache is difficult. I'm wondering if you have anything to speak to on this. Without knowing much more about the context, I wouldn't want to hazard a guess, but when we have deep attachments and love, like a mother does for a child, or some children have for their parents or pets, the deeper the bond, the more painful that separation can be. So we have to just realize that, and we will experience heartache. But we can use these things, and we do eventually use these things to really grow through and understand and wake up, and also develop compassion. So a mother's heartache is, if it's used skillfully, is not a waste. It doesn't have to go to waste. It can deepen our compassion, as long as we work also on letting go. We have to let things go. Otherwise, we suffer. We continue to suffer. So Bhavani has asked the question, how will how will be subtle feelings, but I'm not sure what that means. So if you have more that you can expand on, I don't quite know what that means. Okay, and when you're asking, considering the value of short meditations, I plan on making 10 to 20-minute meditations, with or without music. Love your meditations, but sometimes I'm strapped for time to sit for 45 to 60 minutes. Sure, so we do whatever we can do. But also look at, are we wasting time doing other things that we really don't need to do, like watching crappy movies or doom scrolling or something, when we could be using our time more constructively? And whether you use music as a support or don't, it depends. Sometimes it really helps calm the mind, put us into a non-conceptual state, soothe our frayed nerves. But there's no prescription here. It's not one size fits all. So we just have to see where we're at, when we're at, how we're at, who we're at, and trust your own decisions around this. Suzanne's asking, could you share some advice on how to develop depth of breath in meditation? Practice. Just practice is like anything. Just keep practicing. Start with 5 minutes, a couple of times a day. Use resources that help you keep your focus, and really just keep looking for yourself, training yourself to see what's distracting. There'll be one of 5 hindrances that you'll come up against when you try and just sit and be with the breath. It'll be craving, wanting to do something else, or not liking it, or restlessness, or falling asleep, or doubting whether you're doing it right. So the Buddha talked about these 5 hindrances to settling the mind in tranquility. So get to know those 5 hindrances. You can Google them as well. And often we're confronted with familiar foes. When I first started, my mind would get pretty quiet relatively quickly, but then you know what I'd do? Fall asleep. And then I kind of didn't mind that, because then the sleeping was a way of zoning out. So that's a big obstacle, because it's like, well, I zone out, I don't have to feel my body, I don't have to look at these ratty thoughts. I just fall asleep in meditation. Huge obstacle. So, other people, they sit and all they do is think, I've got to do this, and they come up with fantastic architectural plans, and they use all their time just thinking. And at the end of the meditation, they come up with a great design. This is restlessness. Or people sit and they just, they don't want to be there. There's bored, and then they're just caught in negativity. So it depends what sort of mind we're dealing with as to what sort of obstacles and hindrances we encounter. So get to know those, and then you have to teach yourself how to skillfully just stabilize, but no force, So it's a real balance between making some sort of effort, right effort, and just saying, well, it doesn't matter, I'm not going to do anything, I'm already enlightened. A lot of people are doing that these days. So you have to make the right effort at the beginning until it becomes effortless. So Kari's come back with the question, I think, was it related to the other one? Because probably. Well, now it's jumped. Yeah. So the question, and this is the big question that everyone always has, and we're always looking at this within in ourselves. The teaching or the recognition that suffering is illusion, and recognizing the reality of suffering for those in the midst of deep suffering, such as war and starvation. This is the dance between the relative and the ultimate truth. I've talked about this before. And it's never to deny the relative truth that they're, because I'm sure you all know, in the whole non-duality scene, even the Buddhist scene, a lot of the spiritual scenes, people pick up these teachings like non-self or non-reality or the illusion and go, just come to these teachings and, oh, that's convenient. There is no self and it's all a dream. That's good. That gives me free rein to say what I like, do what I like, not even have to practice because I'm already enlightened type teaching. And don't worry about others because it's all their karma and there's no one there to suffer anyway. So that's just ignorance and the way that people can pick these teachings up incorrectly. Because they hear the great words of the masters who have realized the ultimate truth. And this is why these teachings were kept secret for a lot of the times in many traditions, whether it's Dzogchen or some of the secret Tantra teachings, or even the Ribu Gita used to be a secret doctrine. Now, in our world, it's out there writ large, and so then you have all the problems. You have stupid people hearing these teachings who have no insight, no direct understanding, and then they're suddenly enlightened just by reading this, and they're going to tell everyone the truth. And yeah, rada, 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 rada. And they haven't realized ultimate reality, but they've heard Ramana Maharshi or Nisargadatta say it's all a dream. And, that teaching was always taught in context and given to the person who was ready to hear it. And now, it's just the way it is at the moment. This is mass information and misinformation, and then getting the right information and then misinterpreting it. So yourself, I don't need to tell you, people suffer. You see it, you suffer too. There is a body. There is a someone here. If there's not, you could punch me and your hand should go through, but it doesn't, right? I could walk through walls, I could walk on water, but I don't. Because we're dealing with relative reality, and people in war-torn zones are suffering, and people are causing atrocities across the world. That's true, and that's karma. But it's also the relative world. When you realize through meditation, through inquiry, through prayer, through spiritual awakenings, that there's a whole nother level of reality that most people aren't aware of, and it goes beyond all of this, transcends it, and that the suffering, the way we perceive individual suffering, is actually an illusion, like a dream. Then it doesn't mean we don't have compassion. We have more compassion, much more compassion, because we still feel that people are suffering. We even empathize, that word that a lot of people don't feel horrified by. Deep empathy, to feel the suffering of the world, but not be fooled by it in the same way that people are fooled by it. So Tara and Kuan Yin, actually, she was one who, or is one who, hears the suffering of the world, feels the deep suffering of the world, bodhisattva, and she reaches out to relieve that suffering. She doesn't say, oh, you're all just dreaming, there's no one here, and it's all your karma, you've got to face your karma. So this is what you need to do through your practice. And stop blaming the world. and go deeper within to understand that. And then your actions will come out of a much wiser space. Okay. I sensed this no thing and no something, as if I saw it in the darkness behind my eyelids, but not with eyes, and felt it in my chest like a kind of calm. But that seems like an object then. Yeah, I know what you mean, but it's really when you start writing about it now and conceptualizing it now and remembering it now, that's when we start to objectify it. And it does become very objective, an object. But in that moment, you know, when you had the, we'll call it visceral experience or the knowing, you know, if in that very moment it wasn't an object, it just was what it was. And then the danger becomes, I'm going to write a book about it, I'm going to tell everybody about it, and I'm going to try and get back to it. Then we objectify it. But in that moment of understanding the nature, we'll just call it the nature, you've given words to it, because you saw it, but not with your eyes. So it wasn't a visual experience. It was just a knowing, a deep calm. And it came and went. This is what happens. You know, we have periods of this. So don't chase it again. Don't write a book about it. Don't overthink about it. Just go back into, and remember, perhaps that happened because you sat there with an empty, open, receptive mind, and then it just dropped. That was the conditions for dropping into nothing, no thing, emptiness, right? And even those words are problematic too, because people then have ideas about it. But if you remember how it came to be, I almost guarantee you it was because you weren't trying to do anything and you were just open and receptive. So let it be. Alex is asking if our caddy has been replaced. No, caddy has not been replaced. We were talking about caddy last night and how caddy is still very much here in our hearts. You know, it's a funny thing having a pet, and when we didn't choose it, the cat just turned up, and then we had to take responsibility for it, and no regrets about that. But now not having an animal in the Hermitage has freed us up to travel a little bit more, because she was so old, we didn't want to leave her alone. She was so dependent, especially with Ayajatindra, they were like that. So, you know, it's freed us up a little bit more. And, you know, if a cat turns up on our doorstep looking for a home again someday, we probably wouldn't turn it away. But for now, our karma's changed, and we're able to go hopefully to Tibet next year and see what happens with cats. So I'm on fire right now too, at 50 years of age. And you're right, just flow with it as part of life. It does end at 4 a.m. I've also tried to make peace with it at 4 a.m. Yeah, waking up at 4 a.m. with the hot flush. I used to do that too, yeah. Yeah, it's good practice. It's like Tumo practice. The opposite of Tumo. Okay. I'm just looking for a question. So people can read the reflections, which are very nice. And I'll just look for a question. I'm glad to know that these gatherings are helpful for people and resources. Okay, so just a couple more questions. Hello, dear Samaneri, your why doesn't this thing stay still? Hello, dear Samaneri, your generous offerings are greatly appreciated. Would you be willing to share about your life as a Buddhist nun and any inspiration for the inner monk or nun of lay practitioners? Okay. My life is very simple, extremely simple. And I guess that isn't, for some, I have a friend, a very dear friend, and she's visited me in my little tiny home, which is where I'm sitting now, 7 meters long, 2.4 meters wide. And it's, it's not completely empty, but it's pretty sparse. And it has a little kitchen, a sink and a toilet and a shower. So it's self-contained. And I look out onto a forest surrounded by trees, birds, and a short walk to a beautiful beach and a national park on my doorstep. And my life consists of not much doing other than Dharma. So, of course, as a nun, my life is devoted to Dharma and entails waking early, going to bed relatively early compared to most people, and doing simple things like meditating, obviously, walking in nature, reading Dharma, doing these recordings, occasionally doing some gardening, watering the garden, mowing the lawn, chopping wood. I'm the wood chopper here because I'm quite strong. And cooking one meal a day. And I don't always do that. Jatindra does that, and I wash up. So apart from that, that's it, and it's simple, and it's conducive to not getting caught up in, and then, that's a normal day, but in between that, there's other things that happen, like teaching a retreat, or, as I said, maybe traveling overseas for a retreat or something like that. That doesn't happen all that often. When we had a cat, we also I had to do the kitty litter. There was lots to do when we had a cat, believe it or not. Feed her and clean up after her vomit and her poo, because she had problems occasionally, poor love. But now life is very simple. So the only inspiration, I would say, and a lot of people don't have that privilege, right, to live so simply. And I don't buy clothes, so I don't have to spend money on clothes. I don't go out. I don't have television or Netflix or expensive things. We do have to pay for internet in order to do what we're doing, and bills and, the normal things. But otherwise, it's very much a needs basis. So in our tradition, we talk about all the monastic needs are the 4 requisites. Modern life adds a few more things, because in the old days, the monks and the nuns too would just go out to the forest and would have a flimsy shelter. Some had caves, some might have had, like in Thailand, they had these kind of tents, or they might have had a hut if they were lucky, if a patron gave them a hut. So they'd have shelter, food, which is generally 1 meal a day. Could be a little bit of warm porridge in the morning if needed, and then a main meal. So food is another requisite. Clothing. In India, they didn't need much during the Buddha's day. They'd get rags from the corpses that were thrown away. And what's the other one? Medicine. Okay. So whatever medicine, and they were often encouraged just to drink cow's urine if they couldn't get anything else. So in those days, the four requisites were very simple. And of course, they didn't have rents or electricity bills and all the other things we have now. So we got quite a few more requisites, which are just needs, but, you can still keep it simple. So for lay people too, if you have to work, how much do you have to work? Does everyone have to work full time these days? Perhaps they do, to pay the bills. But whatever you can do to simplify your life and look at the stuff you're buying that you really don't need, but you've been told you do. How many pairs of shoes do we need? How many suits do we need? How many holidays do we need? People are constantly going on holidays and spending money on, things that are just not even good for us, like cigarettes and alcohol and drugs, just wasting money, wasting resources. So I don't know. That's just, that's my life, whether it's an inspiration or whether it creates envy for people, which I'm sure it does for some people. God, if only I had such a simple life. But getting back to my friend, because I went off on a tangent, when she saw my simple abode and asked what I did, which was pretty much what I just said, she said, "Don't you get bored?" So for some people, this my life would be like hell. It's boring. There's nothing going on the outside, Most people have got to have engagements and activities and do something on Saturday night and go on the next holiday and be the head of the corporation. And, there's ambitions, there's things to do, there's books to write, there's people to meet, there's conferences to attend, rada, 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 rada. And a life that I led would be like boring as, I was going to say batshit. Boring as boring can be. So, you're welcome to try it, but it's not for everyone. But if it inspires people to simplify their life, that's good. All right, enough of me. On to I'm going to just do one more question because we're coming to the end of this session. And one more question. So I think I've spoken enough about the suffering in the world and how to respond to that. Of course, go respond. Don't pick up these spiritual teachings as a way to kind of justify not doing anything. But it has to be skillful, and you have to learn if you're just suffering yourself. No, we somewhat. So love of self, John, the love of self, John. Do you accept visitors to the property or hold any events? I'm based on the Central Coast. So no, we don't. This is just a small, very small hermitage where I live with another nun, and it doesn't have accommodation. We don't do events here. But if you go on our website, we do occasionally offer retreats nearby at a big centre in Tilba, John. So if you go onto our website, and of course, we do this stuff online. We do a few private retreats every now and then, or online teachings. So if you go onto our website, vivekahermitage.com, there is a retreat coming up in November on the far south coast. But we don't have any space here. It's pretty small. One last question. Kari, you're asking a lot of questions, so I might just take someone else. Christina, is suffering meaningless? If it's empty, then what's the point of doing anything? Well, suffering's a noble truth. Suffering will wake you up. Suffering is a great gift because it forces us to look at what's going on. So nothing's pointless. The Buddha, that's why if you want to read about the Four Noble Truths, the first noble truth is the noble truth of suffering. Why is suffering called a noble truth? That's something to investigate. Why is it noble? It's noble when it's looked upon with wisdom and it takes us out of suffering. All right, folks. Well, I'm going to leave it there because these questions could go on ad infinitum. And I will just encourage you to know that you already have the answers. You don't need to ask me, really, these questions. Sit with them for a while and see how your own inner guru knows a lot of these answers, especially the really deep ones that relate to your own inner struggles. Ask yourself those questions and how to come out of suffering. The other questions, Google is getting better, isn't it? AI is getting better. You know, what are the Four Noble Truths? You'll get the answer. You'll get better conceptual answers on AI these days than from me. I might be able to point you as to what it means and how to embody them, integrate them. But yeah. Okay. Well, now I just have to see. I'm going now, and I'm just checking the dates because I know Ayurjatindra will be maybe in 3 weeks. Bear with. But I have to check with her because she's also doing a thing on Saturday. Anyway, watch this space. The plan, I think that the general plan is that Ayurjatindra will offer a session in 3 weeks' time. If not, you'll be informed when it will be. For those of you who come regularly, I'm not sure how many of you come regularly. Some of you do, I'm sure. All right, folks, whatever's happening in the world is happening in the world. But what's happening in your world right now, this is what we can address and respond to. And, we respond to what we see, read, hear, think with as much skillfulness and compassion as we can, and deepening wisdom. So may you all be well, and I'll see you again next month, I think. Take care and keep meditating. Well, you know what I mean. Keep practicing. And I'm going to end the stream now. Bye.